night cracked open with Emma's scream, sharp as glass shattering against concrete. Sarah said, "Why would you tell them that?" Her words carried venom that didn't belong to a friend. Emma's chest heaved, her voice trembling as she whispered, "You swore those confessions would stay between us." The rain outside lashed the windows, echoing the storm inside. Their bond, once untouchable, now felt like paper burning too fast to stop. Sarah's smile twisted, as if betrayal had been rehearsed for weeks. The room smelled of betrayal, heavy like wet earth. Emma's pulse pounded as she realized every secret had been sold, every weakness cashed in like a cheap token. Sarah leaned closer, whispering, "Your confessions were never yours." Emma's breath caught, her stomach hollowed, and the truth struck. Friendship had become currency, and she was bankrupt. Emma's voice echoed in her mind as she sank onto her bed, hands pressed to her temples. She remembered when Sarah promised, "Your secrets are safe with me." Now those words felt poisonous. Childhood laughter and shared diaries mocked her in silence. The betrayal wasn't just spoken, it was carved into her bones. She whispered to herself, "We were supposed to be sisters." Her chest ached, every breath like broken glass. Outside, the rain softened, but her heart pounded louder than thunder. Trust was gone, and in its place was an unbearable emptiness she couldn't explain away. Her mind wandered back to their teenage years, when secrets were traded like charms on a bracelet. Sarah once said, "We'll never let the world break us." That memory now stung worse than silence. Emma clenched her jaw, anger simmering beneath the grief. Every moment of joy replayed like cruel theater, mocking her devotion. The girl she trusted most had turned her honesty into ammunition. The betrayal replayed again and again, looping like an unbroken record she couldn't shut off. Emma sat in silence, staring at her phone's glowing screen. Every unread message from Sarah earlier in the day now looked venomous. She remembered ignoring the call, unaware that betrayal was already spreading like wildfire. Emma whispered, "Was I blind or did she change overnight?" Her thumb hovered over Sarah's contact, her stomach twisting. She couldn't decide if she wanted to confront her or erase her forever. The decision hung in the air like a knife suspended by a thread. The room felt colder now, as if betrayal had stolen the warmth. Emma wrapped a blanket tighter around herself, trembling. She thought of the nights Sarah held her hand through heartbreak, the nights they swore eternal loyalty. Now, every memory curdled into pain. She whispered, "Maybe I never knew her at all." The rain finally stopped outside, but inside Emma, the storm raged louder than ever. What shattered between them could never be pieced back again. Emma woke with swollen eyes, her dreams poisoned by memories of Sarah's laughter. She remembered sleepovers where they whispered secrets beneath blankets, making promises they swore would never fade. Sarah once said, "We'll always be each other's safe place." Emma smiled faintly at the memory, before it collapsed into bitterness. That vow, so innocent then, now felt like a cruel joke. Trust had once been their shared language, unspoken yet undeniable. Every stolen moment of joy only deepened a wound left by Sarah's betrayal. Emma pressed her palm to her heart, whispering into the morning silence, "Safe place, you turned it into a battlefield." The memory sharpened into an image of their childhood afternoons, Sarah's voice shouting, "Come on, Emma, race me to the tree!" They ran barefoot across the grass, collapsing into laughter when neither won. Emma had trusted her with everything, believing loyalty meant forever. She could still hear Sarah's giggles, see their scraped knees, feel the warmth of promises, sealed with pinky fingers. That innocence mocked her now. She whispered to herself, "We thought nothing could touch us." The irony stung back then. The world seemed powerless to tear them apart. Emma now realized the only danger had lived inside Sarah all along. Emma stared at a faded photo on her nightstand, taken years ago at Sarah's birthday. Their arms wrapped tight, faces pressed together, grins so wide they looked untouchable. "We're unbreakable," Sarah had declared that day, icing on her lips. Emma laughed then, believing it without question. Now the picture felt like a cruel monument to lies. She whispered, You kept the photo, but you destroyed everything it meant. Her chest tightened as she realized memories remained frozen in time, while the present had twisted into something unrecognizable. Love had aged into betrayal, and innocence had decayed into poison. Emma stepped into the kitchen, the quiet unbearable. She remembered the countless mornings she and Sarah brewed coffee together after long nights of crying or laughing. Sarah once said, "Coffee fixes everything." Emma let out a broken laugh, realizing some wounds were too deep for warmth to heal. She traced the rim of her mug, wishing companionship still lingered there. The silence pressed heavy, every tick of the clock reminding her of absence. Emma whispered, "We used to fill every silence with love. Now silence is all I have." The bitterness of the coffee on her tongue mirrored her heart. Later that evening, Emma opened a wooden box beneath her bed, filled with letters, movie tickets, and trinkets Sarah once gave her. Each piece carried laughter, tears, and love that now felt like ashes in her hands. She remembered Sarah's words, "These memories are proof. We'll never lose each other." Emma shook her head, whispering, "Proof means nothing when the person behind it vanishes." Her chest ached as she placed the objects back. The box now a coffin for a friendship buried alive. For every memory that warmed her once, pain now lingered like a shadow she couldn't escape. Emma sat at the cafe they once claimed as their second home, her coffee cooling untouched. The scent of roasted beans used to mean comfort, but now it only stung. She stared at the empty chair across the table, feeling the space grow heavier with each passing second. Sarah had promised to meet her, yet again she hadn't shown. Emma recalled yesterday's excuse. "Sorry, something came up." It sounded like a line from a script Sarah had rehearsed. Emma muttered, "Something always comes up now." The warmth of belonging they once shared was gone, replaced by silence that stretched like a chasm. Every ignored message was another thread unraveling. She began to wonder if she was clinging to a memory instead of a person. The laughter that once filled this cafe was long gone, and in its place was the suffocating weight of abandonment. That night, Emma lay curled on her bed, phone in hand, scrolling with trembling fingers. Her chest sank when Sarah's face appeared, bright, beaming, surrounded by strangers at a party. Emma whispered bitterly, "So she had time for this?" Each smiling picture tore through her heart. Once Sarah had vowed, "You'll always be the first person I call." Now, Emma wasn't even an afterthought. She zoomed in on one photo, Sarah's arm wrapped around someone new, her laugh wide, her eyes shining. It felt like a cruel parody of the joy they once shared together. Emma's jaw clenched, her pulse thundering. She told herself not to cry, but the sting was sharper than she expected. It wasn't just the party, it was the realization she had been quietly replaced. Their forever promises had expired without warning. Trust fractured not with a bang, but with the quiet ache of exclusion. The next day at work, Emma sat at her desk, shoulders tense. She caught whispers drifting from two colleagues nearby, their voices low but sharp enough to cut. "Sarah told me Emma panics under pressure," one said. The blood drained from her face. That wasn't office gossip. It was a secret she had only confessed to Sarah during one of her worst nights. Emma's chest burned as humiliation climbed up her throat. Rage battled grief, leaving her shaking. Sarah had once promised, "I'd never let anyone see your weaknesses." That vow was dust now. Emma pressed her palms flat on the desk, nails digging into the wood, forcing her tears not to fall in front of them. Inside, her heart screamed. Her soul had been turned into someone else's entertainment, her wounds served up like casual chatter. She whispered to herself, "She sold me for attention." And the truth hit harder than the rumors. That evening, Sarah appeared at Emma's door, as if nothing had fractured between them. She leaned against the frame, casual smile flickering like a mask. "I've been so busy," she said lightly, brushing past without waiting for permission. Emma studied her movements, noticing the careful tilt of her head, the polished tone of her voice. Everything felt rehearsed. Sarah filled the silence with excuses, but Emma's stomach twisted. Finally, she said, "Busy sharing my secrets?" The words trembled but carried steel. For a moment, Sarah's smirk faltered. eyes flashing something between guilt and defiance, but the smile quickly returned. The space between them grew unbearable. Emma realized the girl in front of her wasn't her friend anymore, but a stranger hiding in the same skin. Even her scent, once comforting, now felt sour. The air between them was poisoned, and no amount of pretending could cleanse it. That night, Emma lay awake, unable to silence her thoughts. The ceiling above blurred into a haze as tears pooled. She whispered to herself, "She's slipping away, and I can't stop it." Every memory replayed cruelly: Sarah's laugh, her hand squeezes, her voice swearing loyalty. Those moments were now tainted, each memory staining her chest with bitterness. Emma clutched her blanket tight, trying to hold herself together as if fabric could patch the cracks spreading inside her. She wondered if she had ever truly known Sarah at all, or if she had been blind to the envy and duplicity beneath her smile. Exhaustion pressed on her body, but her mind raced with fear. She thought bitterly, if this is friendship, maybe losing her will hurt less than holding on. Yet, the idea of letting go felt like erasing her own history. She was caught in the cruelest prison, betrayal without escape. Emma's phone buzzed with a message from Daniel, the one person she trusted outside Sarah. Her heart dropped as she read, "Sarah told me everything you confessed to her. I don't know why she'd share that." Emma's hands shook violently. Every word hit like a hammer against her chest. Wound. Sarah hadn't just spread her weaknesses at work. She had taken her most private fears, the ones Emma had whispered in the dark, and weaponized them. "No," Emma muttered, her voice breaking. She clutched her chest, air refusing to fill her lungs. Trust wasn't just cracked now. It was obliterated. She had given Sarah her soul, and Sarah had handed it over like it was a bargaining chip. The room spun as betrayal pressed harder against her ribs. Emma stormed to Sarah's apartment, rage and disbelief colliding. Sarah opened the door, feigning surprise. "Emma, what's wrong?" she asked, her tone dripping false sweetness. Emma's voice cracked as she snapped, "You told Daniel? You told everyone?" For a moment, Sarah's face faltered, then hardened into cold defiance. "They deserve to know who you really are," Sarah spat. The words sliced deeper than knives. Emma's chest felt hollow, her trust burning to ashes. She whispered, "You used my confessions like coins." Sarah smirked, leaning against the doorframe, proud of her cruelty. In that instant, Emma realized Sarah had been erasing their bond long before tonight. Emma stepped inside despite Sarah's resistance, her voice trembling as she said, "We swore to protect each other." Sarah's eyes narrowed, a cruel glint flashing. "We swore to be real," she replied. "And this is the real you, weak, needy, pathetic." Emma gasped, the words cutting sharper than any rumor. These weren't just secrets anymore. This was Sarah dismantling her humanity piece by piece. Emma clutched the edge of Sarah's table, grounding herself against the collapse. "I loved you like a sister," she whispered, tears burning. Sarah shrugged, turning her back. "Sisters don't matter when you were the one always in the shadows." The venom in her tone revealed everything. Jealousy had been hiding behind friendship all along. Emma's breath shook as Sarah circled her like a predator. "You always thought you were better," Sarah hissed. "The strong one, the honest one. But all it took was me whispering your truths, and they saw you differently." Emma's knees wavered, her strength threatening to give way. She whispered, "Why? Was I ever your friend or just a pawn?" Sarah leaned in close, her voice a venomous whisper. "You were currency." The finality of it shattered Emma's last illusions. Their bond hadn't been real. It had been a transaction. Her soul, her confessions, had been nothing more than coins for Sarah to spend. Emma staggered back, clutching her chest as Sarah's words echoed. Her mind flashed with every sleepover, every whispered secret, every laugh that now felt poison. She thought of the diary pages she'd shared, the tears Sarah once wiped away, the hand she once held during heartbreak. All of it gone. "I don't even know who you are," Emma whispered, her voice hollow. Sarah smiled, cold and unrepentant. I'm the one who finally stopped pretending. The air thickened, heavy with finality. For Emma, there was no going back. The betrayal wasn't a wound, it was an amputation. The friendship she'd fought to protect no longer existed. All that remained was the wreckage of trust, shattered beyond repair. Emma's voice shook as she screamed, "You ruined me!" Her words ripped through Sarah's apartment like thunder. Sarah smirked, but her eyes flickered, betraying unease. "Don't act like you're innocent," she snapped, stepping closer. Emma's fists clenched, her body trembling, caught between rage and grief. She remembered nights Sarah had been her comfort, her shield against the world. Now, that same girl was tearing her apart with sharpened words. Emma's tears burned as she said, "I gave you my heart, and you shredded it for applause." The walls seemed to close in, their voices echoing until the room itself shook with anger. This wasn't just a fight. It was the burial of their friendship. Sarah stepped forward, her voice sharp as glass. "You made it easy. Always crying, always confessing. You handed me your weaknesses." Emma's knees trembled, but her rage grew stronger. "I trusted you because you were all I had," she spat. Their words clashed like swords, cutting deeper with each strike. Sarah's face hardened, her voice rising. "I was done being in your shadow." Emma shook her head, choking on disbelief. "You weren't in my shadow, you were my light." Silence followed, heavier than screams. For the first time, Sarah's face faltered, guilt warring with defiance. But Emma saw it clearly. The bond had shattered beyond repair. Emma's voice broke as she whispered, "I defended you to everyone. I swore you'd never betray me." Sarah laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. "Then you were a fool." Emma's body stiffened, every ounce of love transforming into fury. "If being a fool means believing in you, then yes," she said, her words trembling. Sarah turned away, her shoulders stiff, but her mask cracked, her eyes glistened. Emma noticed her voice softening for the first time. "You loved me once too, didn't you?" Sarah froze, unable to answer. The silence was louder than her cruelty. For Emma, that pause said everything. Love had existed, but jealousy had drowned it. And now, nothing remained but wreckage. Emma stepped closer, chest heaving, her voice filled with raw pain. "I would have given my life for you, Sarah. But you," her voice cracked, "you killed us with your lies." Sarah's jaw tightened, but her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "You don't understand," she muttered, softer, almost desperate. Emma shook her head violently, tears spilling freely. "No, I understand too well. You were never my friend. You were my executioner." Sarah's lips parted, but no words came. The silence throbbed, broken only by the thunder outside. For the first time, Sarah looked small, her cruelty stripped away. But for Emma, it was too late. The damage was irreversible. Emma's chest heaved as she backed toward the door. "We're finished," she whispered, her voice raw. Sarah's eyes darkened, her final mask snapping into place. "Then go," she said coldly, turning her back. Emma's tears blurred her vision, but her steps were steady now. She realized she had carried the weight of a dead friendship far too long. Every laugh, every secret, every promise felt like ashes slipping through her fingers. "You'll regret this," Sarah called without turning. Emma froze only for a moment, then whispered, "No, you will." With that, she stepped into the storm outside, the rain washing her face clean, her body trembling, but her spirit finally unchained. Rain soaked Emma's hair as she stumbled down the empty street, her body trembling, her mind numb. Every drop felt like punishment, but also like cleansing. She whispered, "It's over," though the words didn't bring relief. They carried weight, like the burial of a loved one. The night storm mirrored her heart, chaotic, violent, and unrelenting. Every promise she and Sarah once made replayed in her mind, poisoned by betrayal. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, desperate for warmth, realizing she was the only one left to comfort her. Friendship had died tonight, and she was forced to carry its ashes alone. Emma collapsed onto her bed, drenched, clothes clinging to her skin. The silence in her room was suffocating, broken only by her uneven breaths. She whispered, "She was my world," the words cracking like glass. Memories surfaced, Sarah's laughter, the nights they swore forever, the secrets whispered into darkness. Now those memories were daggers, cutting her from the inside. Emma curled tighter, clutching her blanket like it might stitch her back together. "How do you live without half your heart?" she muttered. The betrayal wasn't just loss, it was mutilation. She realized healing would not come quickly, if it ever came at all. Morning light filtered weakly through the curtains, painting Emma's room in dull gold. She sat at the edge of the bed, clutching the wooden memory box. Her hands shook as she opened it, staring at photos, letters, and tokens of a love that once felt unbreakable. "All lies now," she whispered. She touched each item gently, as if mourning a body. The box wasn't just filled with memories, it was filled with ghosts. Emma's tears dripped onto the letters, smudging ink already faded by time. "You're gone," she said softly, "but the pain you left behind is louder than ever." The box closed with finality, a coffin for what once was sacred. Emma wandered to the park where they once shared laughter. The benches were empty, trees swaying gently in the breeze. She remembered Sarah's voice saying, "Nothing will ever change us." Emma sat down, feeling the cruel irony burn through her chest. Children laughed in the distance, their joy mocking her grief. She whispered, "Everything changes," her voice barely audible. For the first time, she let herself admit the truth. Sarah had never been hers to trust. The bond she fought to save was already hollow years ago. Emma wiped her cheeks, her hands trembling, her soul torn open but awake. That night, Emma lit a candle on her desk, the flame small but steady. She whispered, "This is for me," her voice fragile but firm. She opened her journal, pen shaking in her hand, and began writing, not to Sarah but to herself. Each word poured out like blood, raw and unfiltered. She wrote about trust, love, betrayal, and survival. For the first time, she wasn't giving her secrets away. She was reclaiming them. Her tears mixed with ink, but she didn't stop. The flame flickered, casting her face in gold. She whispered, "You don't own me anymore." And for the first time since the betrayal, Emma felt a spark of power returning. Emma walked along the quiet riverside at dusk, the city lights flickering on behind her. The water moved slowly, reflecting colors of a world still alive while she felt hollow inside. She whispered, "You took so much from me." The wind carried her words away, but the ache in her chest remained sharp. She thought of the girl she used to be, one who believed friendship was unbreakable. That girl was gone. In her place stood someone scarred, but still standing. Emma leaned against the railing, gripping it tightly, as if the cold metal could anchor her. She whispered, "You didn't break me. You just showed me who you are." At a cafe days later, Emma sat alone at the table they once claimed as theirs. The seat across was still empty, but now it no longer felt like waiting. She traced the rim of her cup, remembering Sarah's laughter echoing through this place. It was strange how silence could scream louder than sound. Emma sighed, whispering, "You'll never sit here again." For the first time, she wasn't mourning. It was acceptance, though it tasted bitter. The warmth of her coffee didn't heal, but it reminded her she was alive. She realized some bonds weren't broken, they were destroyed, and destruction could not be undone. Emma received a text from Daniel, asking gently if she was okay. She stared at the screen, her fingers hovering. "I don't know yet," she whispered. Trust was no longer something she could give freely. It had been stolen, mutilated. The thought of letting someone else close terrified her, but she also knew isolation would eat her alive. She placed the phone down without answering, her silence speaking volumes. The wound was still fresh, still bleeding, and no kindness could cauterize it yet. She whispered into the empty room, "Not everyone deserves what I gave her." This time, it wasn't despair, It was resolved. 1 week later, Emma walked through the park where their childhood echoes still lingered. She heard laughter nearby, children chasing each other across the grass. Once, she and Sarah had been those children, wild, inseparable, unbreakable. Emma stopped under the tree they once carved their initials into. The letters were faded, nearly invisible. She whispered, "Even the tree forgot us." A tear slid down her cheek. But she smiled faintly. Time would fade their bond completely, the way bark heals over scars. The thought hurt, but also brought relief. Some memories didn't deserve to last forever. Some scars deserved to fade. That night, Emma sat at her desk with her journal open, candlelight flickering shadows across the walls. She wrote slowly, carefully, words forming like wounds stitched by her own hand. "I lost my best friend the day I found out who she really was," she whispered, her voice steady. The final line echoed in her chest like a bell toll. It was not forgiveness, not peace, but a scar she would carry forever. She closed the journal, blowing out the candle, plunging the room into darkness. Yet in that darkness, she felt something unfamiliar, power, faint but real. Sarah no longer owned her story.